every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run or hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives, we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life matters is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run or hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. Heal the wounds, undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall. For justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life matters is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, social change warriors. Good evening, justice seekers, and good evening to all victim advocates. I'm Catherine Felton Page, your host and founder of Social Change Warriors. It's great to be back tonight. Sorry about last Wednesday. I was doing on the groundwork for Michelle, for Sarah, and for Jason Beach for Kara. So I, due to my own injuries and my own bodily abilities, I had to stick to the research and the reading last week and not the live streaming. So I'll get it worked out how I'm going to alternate all of this. But I'm really glad to be back. I missed all of you last Wednesday. And thank you to all of you that have subscribed to Social Change Warriors, that are willing to participate in our live streams, in our conversation box. Everybody calls it the chat box, but to me, it's just a place where we can talk. You can share your opinions. I can share mine with you, and we can get to know each other that way as well, because we're all after the same thing. We want justice for the victims that we're standing for. We want to see their families have some resolution, whether they have been in a M situation, unaliving by someone else, or they are still missing. So that is what Social Change Warriors is all about. We are here to help families and advocate for their dear loved ones who have been unalived by someone else's hands or are still missing by someone else's hands. And that's what we are about. And we are a volunteer group. Those that help me out behind the scenes are volunteers, and I'm a volunteer. So we are now accepting Cash App contributions only for program costs. And I will be completely transparent what those are. And that is all, because we want to continue our volunteer method and our mode of apparatus here at Social Change Warriors. So welcome to Wednesday night. Tonight is the night that we like to talk about women who are either victims of domestic violence or survivors, and we get to meet their families. Sometimes we get to meet them, the survivor themselves. That's been going on the last couple months. We've met Levita, we've met Sarah, angry survivor, and we have a new survivor that we'll be meeting soon, hopefully next week. I just met her, and we're working on her story. It's quite tragic and very scary to hear about what happened to her, and how she survived is a miracle. So hopefully you'll meet her next week or the following week here on a Wednesday. This is our Angry Bitch Club night. That is what we like to call ourselves, the Angry Bees, because we're angry when loved ones are missing for too long and they're not being found, that makes us angry. When loved ones have been taken by someone else's hand, that makes us mad. So I wanted to have a night where we could be mad and we could be angry and not have to be so hyper focused on solving anything, and just talk about these cases and complain about things that weren't done right or that haven't been done at all. And then we use Thursdays more for really unpacking the cases and trying to figure out who done it, right? Where are they? When are they coming home? Thursdays is calling out corruption night, calling out poor police work, government involvement that's not accurate, corruption, sometimes high level corruption, sometimes just not doing their jobs properly, right? So Wednesdays, we try to just stick to support and honor and sharing the stories of the missing with you. And then Thursdays, we really get into unpacking their cases, whether it be reading you their police reports, listening to audio witnesses like we've been doing with Jason Veach's case, and Sarah's as well. So that's kind of how I divide the two nights. I was not involved with missing persons cases until I met Michelle, Sarah's sister. So she was the first case that I decided to take on as a missing person. And I'm really grateful that I did. It's tragic and it's horrific, but any little bit of help that I have been or can be to the family really is gratifying when you care and want to help victims of crimes. So those that follow me every week, they have really taken Sarah under their wing and Michelle, and they've been sharing on their socials and pushing out the advocacy for the Marion County Sheriffs to do more. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But first, I'm really honored to say that I was contacted yesterday by a woman who I believe, now I don't remember where she lives. I believe she's in Illinois, but she's a Packer fan. So we bonded over that. And she shared a missing persons case with me, someone that she knows, and gave me that person's email, who is the daughter of the missing person. So we are going to plan a live stream just for Betty, hopefully either next week or the following week, as soon as I get in touch with the family, because I need more information. I don't want to make any announcements or make any proclamations that I can't stand by. I have not seen the police reports yet. I do not know that much about it, but I wanted to introduce you to Betty tonight and to ask you to pray for her family and to stand with them with me. And let's try to see what we can do to help bring Betty home. So let me just go through here for a second and share with you, of course, we'll be talking about Sarah here in just a few minutes. So first I want to introduce you to Betty, and let me bring her up here. I want to bring her up. There we go. A little bit bigger. I don't need you to see me right now. We need to see Betty. So this is Betty Alexander. And the little that I know is that Betty was a mother and a grandmother and just an all-around wonderful lady. I like I said, I just emailed with her daughter today for the first time, and we didn't get to actually speak yet. So I will have a full live stream for Betty as soon as we can, and then you'll be able to know more about her. And she has been missing for 6 years. 6 years. That just hurts the soul, doesn't it? It really hurts the soul. And how do we not find people? This just amazes me every time when I go to I always check to see how many are currently missing in America. And it just stuns me. And I'm sure you're aware that that there's the shows out there. There's so many different shows that cover missing people in America, and they're doing a wonderful job. And many are found because of these shows, and social media is so helpful to finding the missing. But not everyone is found. And as you know, Sarah's been missing now 2 years as of March the 3rd. And Betty has been missing. And both of these ladies, they have a lot in common, and then they don't, because Sarah was only 26 when she went missing, and she's now 28. And Betty, I believe, was 68. And if someone's in the live and they want to correct me on that, but anything I misspeak, I apologize to Betty and your family. I just haven't had any time to really read much about her missing persons case and her individuality. So I will definitely work on that in the next few days and be happy to have a live stream about Betty and more information. I hopefully can read the police reports. Now I'm assuming this, everyone, I'm assuming they're still redacted. I'm assuming the case is not closed. So I'm sure Betty's family will update me on that. I sure hope they haven't closed it. Hello, Tanya. Oh, hi. This is Tanya. This is Betty's daughter. Thank you for joining, Tanya. And I'm so sorry for what you've been going through. This has to be just heartbreakingly tragic to not know where your mother is after 6 years, and she was 69. Okay, well, goodness sakes, we will all pray for you and send our love your way, and whatever we can do to help you. We are a startup channel. We just started in August. Social Change Warriors is 7 years old, but I was doing pre-recordeds. I was doing more on the ground social work, live presentations. I'm new to live streaming. This was a brand new thing for me in August. So I started out very slow, advocating mostly for some of the bigger cases that most of you are aware of. Ellen Greenberg in Philadelphia, which they blamed her death on herself, 20 stab wounds. I never thought that was accurate. So I thought it was a travesty. So I started digging into that and was able to reach out to her family. And then Sandra Birchmore in Massachusetts was unalived by a man that had been grooming her when she was a police cadet. So we started with some cases that I really wanted to advocate for because I thought their cases were just so wrong and so horrific, but I wasn't planning to really get involved on the reading the police reports and actually speaking to the family level. And it just solely kind of naturally transitioned into that. And now I'm working with 2 families here in Florida, and I have emailed with Ellen Greenberg's parents and several other live streamers. So things are evolving as I go. I'm just trying to always stay in motion and be open to whatever the families need from me or would like me to do as a helper. I'm no longer a police officer. I'm retired, and I'm a retired social worker, so I don't have a license to practice social work, but I am a community social worker, and I do have certificates in community social work and domestic violence. So those are the things I'm trying to stay in my wheelhouse and help you with the most authority and the most experience that I can. So welcome to anybody else who is here from Betty's family. The case is not closed. Good, but the police department isn't actively working it. Well, that's terrible, because here's the problem. If the case isn't closed, then they're not going to give me police reports that aren't redacted. And I'm guessing, and you can answer this in the box if you'd like, Tanya, in the conversation area. Do you have redacted police reports in your possession? Because I would like the copies of those if we can find a way to get those to me. I can ask the records department to send them to me. Now in Kara's case with Jason Veach, most of you know Kara had to pay over $1,200 to get the unredacted police reports and all the audio and all of the footage from the body cams. And it was just unbelievable to me. I've never heard of any sheriff or police department charging a family that much money. I was utterly stunned. I still haven't written my hate letter to Volusia County because we've been working on other things. And tomorrow night, Kara will be back on and we will be talking about the newest audio that we have, which is, it's despicable. That's all I'm going to warn you guys right now. The audio that we have listened to in the last few days on the case of Jason's homicide is absolutely despicable. And I'm not going to tell you more than that because Kara's going to share with you tomorrow night and we'll let you listen to it for yourself and make up your own minds. But we've been mad this week. So this is good. This is the Angry Bitch Club night because I'm mad at Volusia County. I'm mad at Marion County for Sarah. Now I'm mad at whatever county I need to be mad at for your mother, Betty. Could you remind me what town she went missing in, Tanya? If you could share that with us in the conversation area, that would be great. I'm just going to take a minute to say hi to my good friend, Kathy. She's so supportive of me. We've been friends since I was 21. She's like a sister to me. She comes to our live shows whenever she can. And she has COVID, guys. Second time around. She had COVID. She got better. She took Paxlovid. That's the commercial, right? And now she has COVID again. I guess that's a thing that can happen. So sorry, my dear, you're still ill. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you so much. Thank you to my regulars, Shauna, to Julie, to let's see, everybody. Who else? I have so many nice people that come now to all my meetings. I have MCAT, who's an Iowa grad, and we get into it a little bit with our conversations, Badgers and Hawkeyes. Sherry D has been here quite a bit. I have a lot of really amazing women that have been joining me live on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, and I can't thank you enough. There she is. Hey, Julie, craziest person on earth. Yo, ma'am. We have a new lady to stand for, Julie, and I know you're going to get right on it. And this is Betty. We want to bring Betty home to her family. Yes, thank you. So we are Sullivan, Missouri, is Tanya's telling us. So now I will be looking into this in a lot of detail, Tanya, in the next few days, probably over the weekend. You and I will speak and we will come up with, a campaign of advocacy for Betty. And if that means I make phone calls to the police, I make them, because that's what I've done here for Sarah and Michelle. And Sarah, Michelle, and and Kara and Jason, because I just go in with, hey, I'm retired law enforcement. I'm a social worker. Let me talk to you guys. The families are upset. What can I do? I want to play like the middleman between you and the police departments, because I know how they think. I know how they operate. I know they're not always great at their jobs, but most of them are. Most of them want to help you. Most of them are there to solve crimes. They're there to take police calls. Their detectives are there to help you solve your crime. But you do run up against bad cops. That's all I'm going to say. And it's happening when we cover the Karen Reed case on Friday nights. We're dealing with bad cops, and it's everywhere. Everywhere you work, there's going to be somebody who isn't there for the right reasons, and they're not ethical, or they actually commit crimes and they embezzle from their employers, or they embezzle themselves. When you guys met Ed Byers in the fall, Ed shared with us on Thursday nights, calling out corruption, the immense, insane corruption going on in Clark County, Indiana, which is just, it's shocking how the sheriff got away with this for years and years and years, and people above and below him knew it, and they just let him get away with it. He was paying them off, or he was threatening them. Who knows? I don't know all the ins and outs of that case as much as Ed does. He always helps me with filling in all the blanks. I just know it was a huge level of corruption, a lot of money being embezzled, and it went on right under the noses of all the other sheriffs in Indiana and Clark County. And those poor people that lived in Clark County were being heavily affected by this in a lot of ways. And so Ed is going to come back soon and give us all an overview of what happened. And there might be some new arrests coming out of Clark County. So it's not just happening in your towns and in your states. It's happening everywhere. And there's only one way it can be combated. People have to come together. We have to be a village. We have to do this type of advocacy where we're live streaming, we're on social media, we're calling out the crime and corruption. And it can be scary because we're dealing with, in some cases, dangerous people who will do and say anything to keep themselves out of prison. So those of us who live stream and who advocate, we do have to be careful. We do have to watch our backs. And so I'm not advocating for every single person to do what I'm doing, but you can help me do what I'm doing in an anonymous way. And that's what we need. We need more social change warriors. We need more justice seekers so that we can tackle these cases where people are missing for 6 years. There's no reason why Betty should be missing for 6 years. She literally was either escorted out of her front door or lured out of her front door, or she walked out of her front door, right, Tanya? Those are the only 3 things that could have happened to your mother. She did not unalive herself. She was either, like I said, she was lured out, escorted out by someone she knew or trusted, or she walked out of her own accord. Now, Tanya has shared with me, and I don't want to share any medical. So if you want to share any medical, Tanya, I'm going to let you do that in the box, because I don't like to share medical without family's permission in advance. But there were some possibilities, but from what I read, Tanya, there wasn't really any major medical on board that would have led your mother to get lost, right? But you go ahead and tell me. And then let me see if I'm missing anybody else tonight. Not so far. Good. So I'm new to this case. I'm new to Betty and Tanya. I'm concerned about one thing, Tanya, that I read, because I did do some research today, that your mom had taken her medication on time. And that's good because, you know, my mom is 83. And so sometimes my sister and I have to remind her to take her medication. We had to do the same thing with my grandma. I take thyroid medication, and I have a system where the minute I get up in the morning, I take that thyroid med, and I'm so ingrained in it now that I literally never forget. So it's kind of like that. It takes 30 days to undo something, a bad habit, but it also takes extra time to get in a good habit. So your mom was apparently in a good habit of taking her medication on time, and she did that. So you knew that by looking, I'm assuming, in her pill box, right? So Tanya says, let me put this up here. She had the very beginning stages of dementia, but just to where she would forget names or small stuff. Yeah. And that's not uncommon. Sometimes once you get into your close to your 70s, as she was, it's a little early. So that probably was scary for you guys. I have family members who have started early signs of that too. And some of it is just the aging process. And we forget. When I'm having one of my chronic pain days, and Kathy knows this well, because I hurt my neck when I was a police officer, and now I'm dealing with, I just had a knee replacement in November, and my other knee was supposed to be done next month, but I pushed it to July because there's too much going on with social change warriors, and I don't literally have the guts to go through that again right now. That was so incredibly painful, and then I got COVID. So not to complain, but I have a lot of pain on board pretty much on a daily basis. So there are days when my brain fog is horrible, like horrible. And I know I frustrate my family. I know I frustrate my sons. I frustrate myself. But I think a lot of us, I'm 62, once we get in our 60s and heading towards 70s, we do have brain fog. That happens. And if your mom was having these early stages, that doesn't sound like enough to me where she would just walk out the door, right? So let's just rule that out for now. Let's rule out that there's no way Betty just walked out the door and got lost because her dementia wasn't at that level. So then we're only left with two possibilities. She was lured out of her house by a bad person, or she was escorted out of her house by a friend, someone she thought was a friend or acquaintance and turned out to be a bad person. Those are the two that I'm left with if she did not wander based on dementia. Does that make sense to everybody who's with me tonight in the chat? And if you're with me on replay, please comment, because the purpose of this on Wednesday nights is to brainstorm. We want to brainstorm what happened to this person. Why are they not with their loved ones? What can we do to help move the case along, if anything, but mostly to support the family and brainstorm together, because it does help to do that, to bounce things off of each other. So I'm left with lured away or escorted away for whatever reason, like, hey, Betty, let's go. Come on, I want to buy you a coffee or whatever, right? And they wanted something else from Betty. Now, let me get to that. And then again, I'm not going to go too far tonight, Tanya, because I want to talk to you and I want to read some police reports and I want to get a better idea of the neighborhood. Who were her neighbors? Who did she know? Was anybody upset with her? Had she been complaining about any neighbors? What was the environment of the neighborhood? I'm concerned about the other medical issue with her bad back. And I don't want to mention anything that's private, but I believe she was using something for her bad back. I'm concerned about that, Tanya. I have concerns. Now, I don't know what the police told you or what they shared with you, but I'm concerned about that because maybe someone in the neighborhood that maybe mowed her lawn or somebody that she chatted with needed that, and she wasn't willing to share, and they did something to her. That is a concern of mine. I hate to say it, but as a former police officer and a social worker, that was one of my first gut feelings, was that. There's a lot of information. Okay, good. Well, that'll be helpful. And I'm going to stop there because that's just my gut feeling. That's just my visceral feeling. But I want to see the police reports. I want to speak to Tanya, and I want to know more about Betty's days before she went missing. What was the date? It might be on this missing flyer, but I might have covered it up because I wanted to make sure we had, I'm assuming that she had her hair lightened. Correct? Or was it naturally lightening? Because if she has been missing, and this is not, they just found a 22-year-old down in Florida. This happened last year. He had been missing for 2 years and he was living homeless on the streets of Miami. And it was only because of social media that he was reunited with his family. He had schizophrenia. He'd gone into a schizophrenic moment and he did not know where he was. He didn't remember his family. And because he was off medication, he was completely in this moment and did not remember where he was from, didn't know how to get home to his family, didn't know phone numbers. And he just kept living on the streets and nobody picked up on it. He just blended in. 2 years, but social media is what reunited with his family. So if there is any possibility that your mom did wander off because of dementia and she's out there somewhere and doesn't remember her name and somebody's watching over her and doesn't have a clue what to do, you just never know. And so I want to make sure we know what hair color we want to be looking for, right? So she had just had highlights added. She usually has the dark brown hair. Okay. And I'm guessing, and I love the highlights. Your mom is just a beautiful, beautiful lady. But I'm guessing if she is out there and she's with someone of her own accord or not her own accord, then she would probably have the dark hair, is my guess. So I just wanted to put both those photos up and I wanted to make sure I was accurate in doing that. So I just want to say to everybody, again, let's say prayers. If you're not religious, then whatever you do to wish goodwill on people, let's do that for Tanya and her dear mother, Betty. And I will work on Betty, on learning about Betty and her case and what the police have done or not done. And we will have a full live stream for an hour with Tanya and Betty as soon as it's convenient for them. So thank you, Tanya and Betty's family, for coming tonight. You are welcome to stay if you would like to learn about Sarah and what we are doing to help Michelle, Sarah's sister. We've been working with Michelle now since, I believe, September, and there's still no resolution right now. So, dear Betty, we will do whatever we can to reunite you with your family. And I'm so sorry that this has happened to you, Tanya. And you are so welcome. You are so welcome. All right, everyone, let's take a breath. This really hurts my heart. I'm envisioning how I would feel if this were my mother and she wandered off because of dementia, or because she had something that someone else wanted and they wanted to do something nefarious because they wanted what she had worse than they cared about her as a human. And this is what happens when we deal with homicides and the word, which I'm not supposed to say on, but murder. YouTube, they like to censor me now with things, that words I can't use, which makes no sense to me. My journalism major is on fire every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because I can't use words that are in the English dictionary. YouTube, we have to fix this somehow. So I'm supposed to use unaliving, which it irritates me. All of you that have gotten to know me know I always have to do my rant about that. So, okay, let's just take a moment. I need a moment. That's rough stuff. I just feel so terrible for her family and for Betty. It's just really so sad. So we will continue now. We are adding Betty to our family of victims of crimes that we're standing for, missing that we're standing for, and we will use our hashtag My Life Mattered, and we will use the hashtag that they have for Betty, which is hashtag Bring Betty Home. So thank you, everyone, for accepting and bringing Betty into our family of social change warriors, and Tanya and their family. Sarah, my sweet Sarah, you, I've cried many nights for you. It's difficult, isn't it, social change warriors, when we stand for victims of crimes, for homicides, for words, for the missing. When you cover the person's situation, as long as I have now with Sarah, I feel like I knew her, and I do know Michelle now. Michelle is, I feel, a friend of mine. And hi, Michelle. I know you're out there somewhere at a softball game tonight. Michelle usually always lives with me, but she's got child responsibilities tonight. So we're just going to do the update, and we'll be back with Michelle soon. She's a busy lady. She has a full-time job, children, and she does full-time work to find her sister, Sarah. And I'm going to share those updates with you now and let you know what we've got going on. So this is Sarah Ebersol. For those of you that are new to our channel tonight or new on the replay, Sarah went missing 2 years ago on March 3rd. And she was working as an exotic dancer. She had other jobs, but her job at the time was she was working as an exotic dancer at a club near Ocala, right off the Interstate 75. I'm going to take a drink. Hang on 2 seconds. Sorry. So she had worked that afternoon, I believe, and had called Michelle for a ride after work, but Michelle couldn't give her a ride because she lived a good hour away. So it wasn't going to work out that day. Sarah was living in Reddick, which is a little bit kind of northeast, I believe, northwest of Ocala. Ocala is, I'm way over on the Atlantic side in Volusia County. So Ocala is literally directly to my west. It's a very big horse town, lots of horse ranches, horse competitions, and a lot of cowboys over there. And that's why you see Sarah's wearing the cowboy hat, because she was hanging out with some cowboys, as she told her sister in a text that night, and was wearing one of the cowboys' hats. So Sarah has a daughter, and her daughter is currently in the custody of Sarah's former partner from prior to before even, well, maybe at 6 months, I believe is what Michelle told me. So Michelle doesn't like me to use ex, but for all intents and purposes, he was her ex. They were together at one time. They conceived their daughter, Cora, and Cora Dahlia. Now, Sarah named her Dahlia. And this is one of the things that irks me, is that after Sarah went missing, Joe Maton, her ex from 6 years prior, changed her name. And he changed to Cora, his mother's name, and then he kept Dahlia in the middle, but he spelled it wrong because he was at the courthouse doing this name change. He obviously didn't take the time to bother to see what Sarah had named her, and he spelled it wrong. So her Dahlia is still in the middle, but it's not spelled right. So that really doesn't sit with me at all. So at all. I mean, if anything, if you're going to change your child's name and the mother of your child is missing, wouldn't you change it to Sarah or Gail or something like that, right? I mean, I'm sorry, those of you that are live with me tonight, but that's just really irks me, and I don't like it. There's a lot of things about Joe I don't like, and that's just one of them. So this is Michelle Tullis. She is Sarah's sister and has been the absolute warrior princess of the week for weeks and weeks and weeks. I started giving this trophy out to women that were standing for their family members, standing for themselves. And sometimes we give it out weekly, sometimes only once a month. But Michelle earned it, and she earns it every week. She spends so much time looking for her sister, putting up posters, flyers, making phone calls, engaging with me, letting me help her. That requires time because I'm nosy and I ask a lot of questions. So I drive her nuts sometimes, and I know I do, but forgive me, Michelle, because I really want to help you find Sarah in the worst way. And I want the person who hurt her to go to jail in the worst way. So I'm very invested emotionally in this case. And that sometimes causes me to cry a lot and drive Michelle crazy. So March 2nd of 2023, that's where we start this case. And Sarah's sister, Michelle, a lot of what I have up here on my case deck is directly from Michelle. She has an entire timeline of the minute her sister went missing through to today. And she welcomes you to go on her Facebook page and join it. I'm going to show it to you here in a little bit. And we welcome you to join her page because she's constantly updating it, sharing what she's doing. I usually share her posts as well and make my own, whatever we can do to keep Sarah's name in everyone's mouths and keep her face out there until we find her. Hi, Jerry. Welcome. Good to see you tonight. She says hi to Tanya. Nice to have you, Jerry. So Sarah was very friendly. She loved people and a kind, sweet girl. And she made friends very easily. And she didn't always, this is my opinion, and Michelle knows this is my opinion. I don't think she was always very careful. So I think she sometimes, and I've been accused of that. Everyone who knows me knows I make friends everywhere, on airplanes, in grocery stores. My sons have teased me about this my whole life. Mom, everywhere you go, you make a new friend. And I have, and I do. I have a good friend now, Jeannie, who I met at a football game when we were playing Michigan State, the Badgers, and we're friends to this day. And we met completely accidentally at a pep rally. So I know Sarah. I feel like I know her. I feel like her and I have a lot in common. I can be too trusting. I can be too willing to go off and just start talking to somebody, give them my number, and believe they're an okay, safe person. So Sarah that night met up with who she said to her, she texted her sister and said, I'm getting in a truck with some random truck with some cowboys. And Michelle tells us that Sarah used random when she was talking about people that she didn't really know that well, or was just getting to know, or had just met. So, and then these were her exact words. She hoped they took her on a ride. Now you can, conceive of that any way you want, of what she was talking about. Was she talking about partying? Was she talking about sex? I don't know. We don't know for sure. We think maybe both based on the witness testimonies, witness statements. So Sarah originally got a ride down to the gas station with an acquaintance of hers and his girlfriend. They, I guess, were like the caretakers of the property where she was living and knew her roommate. Her roommate was a veteran and was away on a veterans women's retreat. So Sarah was at the trailer herself she had her own room there, and she needed a ride to the gas station to get cigarettes and some bottles of wine, it sounded like. So she got a ride from this Lonnie person in his truck, and they dropped her off, and then she ended up meeting up with Bubba. Now, in my opinion, and this is mine and mine only, maybe some other people's, I think she knew these guys, maybe super casually. Maybe they had come into the Club Risque where she danced. Maybe they had seen each other at the Circle K. This is not a big area. This is Reddick, Florida. It's a tiny, small town out in the middle of nowhere. Nowhereville, Florida, Marion County. So I have always told Michelle, I am of the opinion that she didn't know these guys, that they weren't, maybe getting in the truck was a random thing for her to do, but I really think she knew them, at least very casually, at best, probably. So this gentleman's nickname was Bubba, and his name was James Robinson. And they ended up getting a ride together to the house where Bubba lived. And that was by a friend of Bubba's named Leonard Anderson. So he was the owner of a Chevy Silverado pickup truck that became a truck of interest early in the case after Sarah went missing. So this truck was on the original missing flyers because when when she first went missing, obviously no one knew what the heck happened to her, where she went, and nobody was coming forward. So all they knew from the surveillance camera of the Circle K was that she got in a truck with this other guy and the man who was driving, and they drove off. So this truck was on the missing flyer. The thing that was the real kind of catch is that for whatever reason, Marion County did not update the missing flyer on Sarah until Michelle was on them constantly. And then when we started live streaming, my guess is they might have gotten wind of it. I also started calling them and emailing them and asking for an updated missing flyer. Michelle, of her own accord, found out who owned this truck and found the truck and cleared the truck. And she did that all by herself. And the owner of the truck is the gentleman in the blue. The gentleman to the left is James Robertson Bubba, who is no longer with us. So that's a bit of a problem as well, because he was a witness. He was there. He was with them that night. This is kind of the lay of the land. I'm going to make this bigger here. Hang on a second so you can see it better. This is the lay of the land where they were. So like I said, it's a very small area. They all of the people that saw Sarah that night before she went missing, you can see Ocala down there to the south of the circle, which is Reddick. And they all lived within a 1 to 2 mile radius of this gas station. All the people that saw her before she went missing, with the exception of possibly Joe. Joe was down in Ocala, living in the Ocala Suites with her daughter. And she had made some statements to her coworkers and to her sister that she was planning to meet Joe that night and give him money so she could see her daughter, because Joe was constantly making her do things or give him money in order to see their daughter, because he had gained custody through a lot of nefarious lies and behavior. And it's just such a tragic story that Sarah wasn't allowed to see her daughter very often, and that Joe Maitland had total control over this little child. So that's why I believe Joe is a person of interest. The police don't list him as that right now today. He was in the beginning. So maybe they know something I don't know, but given his history of abuse and violence and just con artist and drug dealing and everything else that is on file, that is on paper, I just don't understand why he's still not a person of interest. And I wish that they would share that with us and tell us after 2 long years, but maybe they can't. Maybe he is, and they just don't want anyone to know. We don't know about that, but we know that Joe was living in Ocala, which was south of Reddick, not that far away, and that Sarah was talking about meeting him that night. And that's where she goes missing. So this was the truck, and it was located by Michelle through all of her efforts. She emailed, she called, she tried everything she could to get the Marion County sheriffs to take this truck off the missing flyer, because people were calling in about it. And that wasn't really fair to the owner of this truck, because he was cleared. So that was just a bizarre situation, and finally got a new missing flyer in January without the truck on it. So again, here's a map kind of showing you what it looks like, but these are where all the people lived, and there's no full addresses on here, so we're not doxing anybody, but these are where all the people involved in this case lived. It was all within a very short area near that Circle K. This is the house. It was like a duplex situation where she went to party with these random cowboys. So they partied from approximately 10:30, 11 into the middle of the night, as far as we can tell, based on Sarah's phone records. So this was a split duplex situation, and Sarah met up when she got there. She was with Bubba, the gentleman who's no longer alive, and she was with Tisha, who was living on the other side of the duplex, and she was with her boyfriend, James Schaller, who was living with Tisha. So there was Bubba on one side of the duplex, Tisha and James on the other side. Now, again, I'm of the opinion that she casually already knew these people. Michelle's not so sure about that, but I do. So that's just my opinion on that. So there were photos taken that they found later, because when James Schaller saw a missing flyer with Sarah's face on it, he immediately called in to the police and said, "Hey, I was with her that night." So he was ruled out early because he was so forthcoming, and he gave over the photos that were taken. Then once they got able to get into the iCloud, I believe it was Michelle told me, and if I'm wrong on this, I'll have Michelle correct it, because there's so much information in my brain about Sarah. but they were able to find photos that were taken, and I believe it was videos that she took. But James Schaller provided photos. It says from his phone in April of 2023, he presented photos with no hesitation, with timestamps and location. So like I said here, in my opinion, these photos are very personal, and I believe that Sarah knew all three of these people before that night. Whether she knew them very casually or not, that's just my take on it. Of course, I have my own opinion. So Tisha is the woman over here on the right, sitting next to Sarah. Behind, you can just barely see James Schaller back there, and then James Robertson, Bubba, he's the one with the cowboy hat. So they were hanging out, partying, taking photos. Everybody looked happy, looked like a bunch of young adults, just hanging out, doing their thing, right? And so this was one of the last photos, I believe, that was taken. They're outside with the dog, and this property was in really bad shape. It was kind of fallen down, and there was a lot of trash, a lot of garbage on the property. I believe it's being sold and developed now. All the slides that I have up here is information that Michelle provided to me, timelines. James Robertson stated to authorities in a video interview that Tyrone Mormon was hanging out at the house with him and that he offered to give my sister a ride home. That's what Michelle had posted on her Facebook. For a while, they thought possibly she had called an Uber, and there was an Uber driver that was involved. I'll talk about him in a minute. One of the things that stands out is that there's a couple things that is bothersome to me. So the witnesses said that Tyrone and Bubba were texting each other and that they were friends, and that Tyrone wanted to come over and maybe smoke pot with Bubba. So he came over and hung out with them for a while. Not exactly sure of the exact time that he got there or what time he left, but it was somewhere between maybe 1 a.m. and like 3 to 4 a.m. So Tyrone used his girlfriend's car, which was a blue Hyundai blue vehicle. And that is what Tisha says she remembered seeing Sarah getting into and leaving. So there are witness statements that she did get in this car and that she left with Bubba, but they're also saying that there was money in her wallet because she was planning to meet up with Joe and give him money so she could see her daughter, that she forgot her wallet and they had to go back. And several of the witnesses stated that she came back to get something, but they didn't know for sure if it was her wallet, but they did come back. Tyrone ran in the house, got whatever she left, came back out, and they left. So that's the last time that Bubba, Tisha, or James Schaller saw Sarah. She was with Tyrone Mormon, according to the witnesses, and they described him pretty accurately, and the car was described pretty accurately. And from what we now know of what they were able to get out of Sarah's GPS coordinates and Tyrone's GPS coordinates, that they were at a gas station again at some point in the early morning hours. And that's all we know. And then from there, everything's a mystery. She was not at home when her roommate got there. Her roommate called Michelle. They obviously became worried. They called the police. And then from there, it became a missing persons case. The one thing that stands out a little bit as odd is that Michelle said that the shoes that Sarah's wearing in this photograph, they found at the house. The roommate said the shoes were at the house, that she recognized them. They were there. Her lighter was there. Her cigarettes were there. So did Tyrone take her home and then leave? And then did Joe come and pick her up and take her? So because she wanted to see her daughter and she wanted to give him money? Or did Tyrone take her home to get some things? And then did he give her a ride to Joe? These are all questions that we have no answers for right now because Tyrone is not cooperating as he should be. Joe is not cooperating as he should be. The cooperators are who Michelle calls the Reddick Three. One of them has passed of a drug overdose. That's Bubba. The other two are still living. And James Schaller has been super cooperative. Tisha has been cooperative. In fact, she's even texted with me. So obviously, the two that aren't cooperating raises hairs on the back of my neck, right? So that's what we are trying to trying to figure out in our own minds now as we wait for the Marion County sheriffs to figure this out. So as Michelle said, her sister's shoes were inside of her own residence, but she was she was wearing in all the photos. Her cigarettes and lighter were outside of the home, and the 2 large dogs were still inside the residence. And these were dogs that belonged to her roommate. And the person, Lonnie, who had given her a ride, was actually watching over the dogs and babysitting the dogs. So Sarah was probably going to watch the dogs too and let them out to use the bathroom. Marion County Sheriff only has a triangulation of her phone that's missing with her. The only property that Michelle says her sister had on her was her clothing, her cell phone, and her clutch wallet. So that's what's still obviously missing with her, is where they never discovered her cell phone, or her clutch wallet. And there is no further timeline at that point. So that's at roughly 4 a.m. Sarah literally disappeared in what feels like into thin air. Right? So these are just different photos that Michelle put together. At one point, I was trying to figure out maybe how intoxicated she might have been, or could they have slipped her something, and could she have passed away from a drug overdose? So I was trying to look at her pupils and try to determine if I could see if there was drugs or alcohol on board. But it's very hard to do that without being live with the person and being able to do what the police can do, which is the nystagmus test for the pupils size. So again, lovely Sarah with in various stages here of photos from that night. And the one on the far left was her at work. So that was during the day. So Bubba, James Robertson, aka Bubba, sadly died of a drug overdose, I believe 9 or 10 months ago. Robinson told a family member he did have intercourse with my sister. This is a statement from Michelle, and that information was never told to any of the authorities. So Cricket Wireless account was disconnected within 4 days of her disappearance. Michelle believes that's because she just wasn't unable to pay her bill. But the one thing that has really bothered Michelle is that Sarah's phone synced. It synced somehow, which, you know how when you get in your car and your phone syncs? So they have the ability to know that happened, even though they don't have the phone. So her phone synced to a Wi-Fi. So that leads me to believe it had to have been a car. She had to have gotten into a car she'd been in before. Or when her phone synced, she was at the hotel with Joe because she had been there many, many times, and her phone synced to the hotel Wi-Fi. Those for me are the only 2 possibilities. And I'm sure the police have looked into that and are looking into that currently, right? These are just notes for myself about the IP address. So somebody, according to Michelle, they were able to find this out on Sarah's Snapchat, that there was somebody trying to get access to her Snapchat on March 3rd, after she would have already been disappeared later on in the day. So that's not normal, right? That's completely not normal. And the only person that would have access to her Snapchat is Joe. That he is the only person that would have access to that. As I said, Michelle has worked tirelessly to find her sister. She has made thousands and thousands of poster size flyers that she has put on palm trees, wherever she could get permission to put them, from Ocala to Reddick to over by where she lives in Dunellen. And this is her newest project, which I'm so proud of her for, because she raised the money, all the people, thank you to everyone in Ocala area and Reddick area and all of her family, friends, and any of the supporters who donated, because those flyers kept getting torn down mysteriously, right? Torn down in the area of where Tyrone Mormon lives. So because he's still considered a person of interest, because he will not cooperate and tell the police what they believe he knows, because based on his phone records, they believe he knows where Sarah was dropped off, and he will not tell them. And that makes me mad. And that's why it's the Angry Bitch Club, because I want to bitch about this. Tyrone, if you're watching, if your mother's watching, all you have to do is tell law enforcement where you dropped off Sarah, and you are out of this. You are then no longer a person of interest. You are done. You are dismissed. We can move on to probably Joe once and for all. But until you do that, you will remain a person of interest, because they have your phone. They know where you were. They know where Sarah was. They know you were together. So please, for the love of God, for the sake of everything holy, for Sarah's child and for your children, tell the police where you dropped her off. That's my plea I'm making to you tonight. These are the new signs. You can't tear them down. You can try to destroy them, I guess, but you can't tear them down. And Michelle has put 4 of them up now, and she's putting 4 more up in the next couple of weeks because she has permission, because people care about Sarah and want to find her. That's what everyone should be doing, and everyone should care about where she was dropped off that night and then what happened to her. She did not unalive herself. That is completely out of the question. So these, I use this as my background tonight because I just want to give Michelle so much credit, so proud of her for putting these signs up and having them installed. She built them and she works a full-time job and she has kids. So I know that Tanya can relate to this. This has been 2 years of hell for Michelle and her family, as it's been 6 years of hell for your family and for Ellen Greenberg, who we're standing for. Her parents have gone through 14 years of hell trying to get her case reversed from an unaliving to a homicide, which they are now finally in the process of doing. And we'll have hopefully some updates on that very soon. We're still waiting for the new medical examiner to reopen the case or rule it homicide. The old medical examiner retracted his statement and said that he was wrong and that it wasn't an unaliving and that he was wrong all those years ago and for various reasons. And he mysteriously sent that letter in the day before he was supposed to be in court with her family for his misdeeds. So there you go with the corruption and the crime involved in the Ellen Greenberg case. It's just sickening. So that one we will still continue to update you on as soon as we know more information. But this is horrific. Sarah has been gone far too long, 2 years, as Tanya said to me in an email, and as Tanya's friend who referred me to the family, somebody knows something. People don't just disappear into thin air. Somebody saw them last. Somebody had something to do with them being missing. And they've told somebody. Very few people can keep a secret. Very few people can go to their grave not telling a single soul something that they did or didn't do. So I'm just saying that we need Tyrone Mormon, person of interest, according to the sergeant who I spoke to last week for 20 minutes, is a valid person of interest based on cell phone GPS locations. That's science. You can't mess with science. Don't mess with science. Just tell us where you dropped Sarah off, and then you can move on and you don't have to be part of this anymore. Let me put the deck back up here for you. So this is this was when Tyrone was arrested a year ago because he lied to the police and told them that his phone was broken and that he'd thrown it away, which was completely not true. And they were able to find out that wasn't true. So they arrested him for, obstructing a police investigation and lying to the police. So as far as we know, he was the last person to see Sarah alive. I don't believe that, Tyrone. I believe that Joe was the last person to see Sarah alive, but you could prove me wrong, or someone will, maybe, but that's just my opinion from everything I know about this case and everything I know about Joe. Or Joe, you can prove us wrong. Come forward, cooperate, talk to the police. Let Michelle see her niece. Bring your niece to Michelle so she can visit her and see her. Why are you hiding her from her family? It's time for all of you to come and tell the truth. This woman deserves to be home with her family, or she deserves a proper burial. Your lies are old and tired, and there is no one else that could possibly have hurt her. So this is where we sit. This is where we sit. So we need these people to come forward and start cooperating. This is Joe Maitland. He's my person of interest, whether he's the police's or not right now. But Michelle states that she had intended to take all the money that she made at work that night, which we think is between $1,000 to $2,000 that was in her wallet, and show up uninvited to the Ocala Suites, where her child's father was the manager, and barter with him so she could see her child more, because he is a narcissist and he kept her from Michelle, from the family, from Sarah. He has a lot of paper. And when I say that, that means a record, and a lot of it. So I can say that, Joe, because I'm not defaming you. You have a record. It's all on paper. I can show it all on this show if I want to, because it's an open records law. So I can't help it that you committed all those crimes. That's on you. Now you need to come forward and tell the truth. If you were not involved, then come forward and tell the truth and let the family see their relative. Cora deserves to see her family. stop keeping her from her family. That's not right. It's completely wrong. Now we know that Joe is on the move again. He was in Tallahassee working at a car dealership. I confirmed 2 days ago he's no longer there. Michelle was able to also confirm. We are trying to confirm with the school. We've left messages. We've left phone calls with the principal that Cora is now no longer in school, so she's considered truant, not for the first time in her short young life. She's still in kindergarten. She's 6. So she's been truant from a school in Ocala. We have received anonymous messages from a school in Ocala that the teachers were afraid of Joe, that he was creepy and scary, and that they were concerned about Cora. Phone calls, complaints have been made to DCF, to no avail, So one other thing I want to mention is that this is why I don't believe Tyrone had anything to do with hurting Sarah. I just believe he gave her a ride. Her binder with all of her legal paperwork, including the harassment from Joe, the restraining orders that she tried to get against Joe, all of her notes from Joe's nefarious behavior with her daughter were in this binder. And that was missing from the trailer where she was had her own room. So Tyrone doesn't care about a binder that has to do with Sarah and Joe. He's not going to take that. So who's going to take the binder? Joe's going to take the binder, right? Or Sarah took it with her to show Joe, to try to convince him that he needed to give her more time with her child because she had all this evidence against him. One way or the other, either Sarah took that binder with her to meet Joe, or Joe took the binder after he unalived Sarah. There's no other options there, right? So no one else is taking that binder. That's a huge, huge piece of evidence and a huge clue in her missing case, in my opinion. This is a case that really disturbs me. This is from Northport area, which is near Sarasota. Joe was living there in 2006, before he ever met Sarah, before he started stalking Sarah when she was in high school and several other high school girls that tried to get restraining orders against him. That's all on paper. Patrick Dwayne Murphy lived 2 miles from Coral Rose's Northport home when she was killed in September 2006. He was charged with kidnapping and rape of a child. He's serving life in prison. Interesting that this particular man lived in Kentucky in the same town where Joe lived. And they both moved to Northport at the same time. And it's interesting that Joe was a person of interest in sweet little Coral Rose's demise. They asked him for his DNA. They didn't have any evidence against him. They brought him in for questioning, asked him to give a DNA sample, and he declined. And he was extremely nasty. And I can show you that report next time we get together. This is why I am not a happy camper where it comes to Joe. It's scary. This is the man that's now serving life in prison, who I believe knew Joe and Joe knew him. And they were from the same town and they moved to Florida together. That it all adds up. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm sorry. 1 + 1 normally equals 2. Again, this is what Joe looks like when he's Mr. Important and working at the car dealerships. That was his last tag, which we now know is not accurate. So thank you to social media. Sometimes we hate it and sometimes we love it, but I'm thanking it today because this week, Joe is on the move. And he was seen on a surveillance camera at a health club in Sarasota, Florida, late into the night. It's a 24-hour health club, late into the night, heading towards the locker room area with Michelle's niece. And how this all came about, where Michelle found out, is because the person working in the health club had already seen him in there earlier that day, and he was concerned. So he called the owners, and the owner's wife became very concerned when she saw that he had a small child and that she got a bad vibe about it. She said the child was looking down at the ground, walking behind her father. He wasn't holding her hand. She was carrying her own bag. She's 6, and he had a big duffel bag. So that concerned her, as it should. So she decided to call the other health club, or she looked up his record and found out that he had been a member up in Tallahassee, which is where he was living, where he's been for the last 6 to 8 months. And lo and behold, he was reprimanded there for bringing a child into a health club because it's against their rules and it's unsafe, but he was still doing it anyway, probably using the showers, right? There's no cameras in there, but the cameras showed him going in the direction of the showers with his daughter, and they made him leave. They kicked him out. So for whatever reason, he is no longer working at the car dealership. I confirmed that. He's no longer there. We don't know why this is happening, why he's suddenly on the move again after 8 months, but he is. So he goes back down to where it's familiar, Sarasota area, using this 24-hour club. So what happens next is she doesn't like any of this. So the owner of the club decides to goes online and puts his name in. Lo and behold, when you Google Joe Maton, guess what comes up? All of Michelle's posts, all of the information, his arrest record, his mugshot. And now she's very, very concerned. So she private messages Michelle. Now they're talking. She sends Michelle the surveillance footage of Joe and Cora. And I don't have that to show you tonight because I didn't want to do that without Michelle's permission. So, I just wanted to leave her alone tonight with their family. They're at a softball game. But if she's okay with it, we'll show you that next week, or when we have our next update. So Michelle then calls me, texts me right away. So then I call and leave a message with the sheriff, the sheriffs, because the sheriff hasn't been treating Michelle so great because she's done so much of her own investigating. They're basically mad at her, for lack of a better way to put it. So they're letting me kind of be the middleman and talk to them. So the sergeant has been very kind to me and very responsive. So I left him a message yesterday that this was all going on, that Joe was on the move, that he has a different car, that he was using the health club. He's obviously homeless again now, no job. Cora's not in school. So this anonymous person who owns this health club filed an online report with DCF. This is one of many that have been filed against Joe, and they never go anywhere. And it's maddening, and it makes me so angry how we let our children slip through the cracks like this. So I'm going to file my own report tomorrow based on everything I know and have learned from Michelle. And what I'm going to encourage all of you to do, if you're willing, is you can't file an actual report because you don't know what I know. But I'm going to post the email for the regional office of the Department of Children and Family Services here in Florida. And if all of you could email them and just simply, I'll give you what I'd like you to say. It's simply saying this much. This child has fallen through the cracks. Her mother is missing, presumed dead, presumed unalived by possibly this person who's got custody of this child and has been evicted and is homeless and is living, pillar to post. She's not in school. Even if Joe did not unalive Sarah, he is not doing what is best for her right now. He's not allowing her to see her family. He's not allowing her to see Michelle. And he's not doing what's best for this child. So he deserves whatever complaint he can get with child family. Nobody ever wants to involve child family services, but when it's warranted, it's warranted. And there's been too many things, too many anonymous reports from teachers, too many other incidents where people are worried about this child, including Michelle and including me now. So if you're willing to do that, I'm going to share that email on my social media. I'll also post it in the comment section of the replay of this live show. And so I would like to have those done as soon as possible. See if we can get any movement on this. Now we have a license plate. We know he was in Ocala yesterday, probably according to Michelle at the Ocala Suites, because she thinks he's having his mail sent there and he's going to check the mailbox, which is a felony. So there's all kinds of things we can get him in for questioning on, right? Messing with a mailbox that doesn't belong to him, using an improper address for all of his documents, which would be this Ocala Suites. He was evicted from there a year ago, I believe, a year and a half ago now. So much. So that's really our update for tonight on Sarah. There will be more because there's other things in the works that I'm not allowed to share yet. But thank you. Thank you, everyone who has cared about Sarah and is sharing her story out on your socials, because that's what we have to do. There's only so much we can do as advocates. We can stand for Michelle, support Michelle, and we can share out Sarah's picture and share out the picture of the person of interest, who is Tyrone Mormon, because he will not talk, and Joe Maitland, because he will not talk. So when you're not cooperating and police have asked you to come in and talk and tell us where you were, what you were doing, when did you last see Sarah, where did you drop her off, and you're not doing any of that, then you are a person of interest and you remain one until you cooperate with the police. So we will continue to update you as we, follow through and get updates on Sarah. And I also want to remind everybody, I'm just going through my deck here so I can pull up the slide that I want to show you. Michelle started a really sweet gesture for her sister Sarah, and it has to do with the beach and seashells. And you guys that know me know how fond I am of the beach and my seashells. And Sarah was very fond of the beach as well. So I just want to share with you what Michelle started about a year or so ago now, I believe. It's called #TossShellsForSarah. So when you're at the beach and you find a shell, we would just like you to write the hashtag #TossShellsForSarah on it, or hashtag Sarah Ebersole, or hashtag Where is Sarah Ebersole. So when people find those shells, they may look up the hashtag and they may join in our quest to find Sarah and bring her home to her family. This is one of my new memes I found that I really love. And if you're willing to stand for victims of crimes and their families, you are a warrior. You truly are, because this is such hard stuff to listen to and to absorb and to stand for. It's hard enough when it's your own family member and you're going through it. But when it's not your family and you're just doing this of your own accord, to me, that truly makes you a warrior. And warriors don't give up and they don't ever back down. So pick yourself up and get your sword and fight till the end. And that's what we have to do for all of these people that we are standing for here at Social Change Warriors, because most of them they are not being taken care of by law enforcement properly. They are not being taken care of by the local government. The laws are not taking care of them in the way they should be. In Cora's case, the laws are not taking care of her right now. She's a little child. She needs to be with family. She shouldn't be being dragged around the countryside to different houses, different homes, different schools every 7-8 months. It's just not what should be happening to this child. So for me, the system is letting her down. Our laws are letting her down. And in many of the cases now, we know Betty, we feel that obviously the family has been let down by law enforcement. And we already know that Karen Reed has been let down by law enforcement. Ellen Greenberg was let down by law enforcement, and Sandra Birchmore was let down by law enforcement. It's shocking. It's horrific. And we just can't let it stand. All of these women deserve justice. And tomorrow night, we will learn more about Jason Veach. And we know that he has been let down by law enforcement. And now that we have listened to the audio interviews of these witnesses, the people on the scene who held him down and didn't let him up for 9 minutes, and he ended up dying of asphyxiation, we know for sure law enforcement let him down. You are not going to be happy tomorrow night when you hear the rest of the audios. The ones from 2 weeks ago were bad enough, but trust me, these are far worse. It's been a really rough 2 weeks for Kara. I feel for her. Please say a prayer for her. If you're not religious, send her the best vibes you can send her, because it has been horrible for her to listen to these interviews, knowing that the DA chose not to press charges. And when we live tomorrow night, it's going to be difficult. I'm just going to warn you, trigger alert. It's a trigger alert. So I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll continue to support everyone that we're standing for here at Social Change Warriors. Some Wednesdays, we will actually do some mindfulness. We'll do some sharing of tactics for how to take care of yourself when you're a family member of a victim who's either missing or has been unalived and doesn't have justice, and for those of us that are caring for you and advocating for you, because we do have to take care of ourselves. If we don't take care of ourselves, we cannot stand for your family member. You cannot stand for your family member. I encourage Kara and Michelle, and I've encouraged Ellen Greenberg's parents. I mean, all the families I'm working with right now, you still have to take care of you. Your family member would want that for you. So please, please do that. And who's taking care of me lately? And I'm going to introduce you to my little buddy again, because he is my new emotional support animal for my issues, for my chronic pain and my PTSD from being a cop. This is Tanner. and my sons call him Touchdown Tanner, and he is the best little buddy I could have ever hoped for. My sweet Zelda passed away last July, as most of you know, and she was my service animal for 11 years. I have missed her so much that I could not bring myself to adopt a new animal, but my putty cats passed away, and I have been miserable without an animal. They save me. When I'm having a really bad pain day, a really bad anxiety day, I don't know sometimes if I could be here or live here anymore if I didn't have these little buddies. So this is my new buddy, and he's going to start his good citizen training so that he'll also be qualified to go to nursing homes and to cancer research, cancer wards for the children. And he's just amazing. He's been such a great joy to me, as is my grand puppy, the Doberman that you've all met many times, Zeus. And for all of you that love Zeus, he hasn't done anything more to the possum, but he did unfortunately unalive a squirrel last week. I'm sorry, Julie. I didn't want to tell you, Shauna and Julie, but the goose got a squirrel and we tried to help it, but it wasn't going to make it. So I even called the nature preserve near here, the people that rescue, and I said, can you come help me rescue the squirrel? And then they asked me to like check its vitals, and I did, and it had already passed. So unfortunately, Zeus was trying to play with it, and it did not go well for the squirrel. So that's the Zeus update for Julie and Shauna. And I wanted to end with that because we have to smile a little. We have to find some happiness in our lives while we're standing for victims and families of these horrific crimes. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you so much for joining me tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night calling out corruption with Kara and Jason Deach and listening to the rest of the pretty horrific audio that we have on the witness interviews. Friday night, we have been covering the Karen Read trial 1, and we've been going over the witness testimony. We are asking 3 questions of you when you join us on Friday nights. Did the witness tell the truth? Did the witness lie? Or was the witness evasive? Or was it a combo of all those things? So tomorrow, on Friday night, we're going to be checking out Julie Nagel's testimony, her brother Ryan Nagel, and then Ricky and Heather, the 2 friends that were in the truck. So this should be interesting. I've actually found this testimony to be most compelling and telling for me. I really believe that their testimony completely exonerates Karen. And I'm a little confused that wasn't honed in more on in the first trial. So much, in my opinion, exonerates Karen. Now, you may have been following this case before you met me and before you met Social Change Warriors, and you may not agree with me, and that's okay. Come on Friday nights and tell me why you don't agree with me, and I'll tell you why I believe that John O'Keefe was not hit by a car, that he was killed in a fight with the Alberts and over something he was investigating. I have thought that from day one. I'm going to keep thinking that and believing that until they prove me wrong. And then I'll say I was wrong. But for now, I don't believe I'm wrong. And that's what we're doing on Friday nights. We will have some coverage of the Idaho tragedy on Friday nights as well as we get closer to that trial and any other trials that any of you are interested in wanting to cover or look at the witnesses' testimonies as the trial's happening live. We will do that on Friday nights. So thank you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for caring about people. Thank you for being good humans. And remember, my life mattered and just us. When you are on social media, we would appreciate it. And I will put up the contact info before I will play us out with our theme song for Thursday to get us ready for Thursday night. So let me put up my contact info for all of you that would like it is acttactmsw@gmail.com. Twitter X, we are Social Change Warriors at DuneCat14. I'm on Facebook with my name. I don't have it listed as Social Change Warriors yet. I have a page for Social Change Warriors, but it's just under my name, Catherine Felton Page. You can find me on Facebook as well. And our Cash App is $DuneCat14, and that is just for program costs only. And I will be posting once a month what our program costs are. And if you want to help us with that, we would greatly appreciate it, but we are not in it to win it. We're not in it for any type of income for me or any of our volunteers at this particular juncture of our program development. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to take you out here. I'm going to put up our banner that we made for Bring Betty Home. We've had Sarah's banner up a lot, so we're going to put up Betty's Bring Betty Home banner for our closeout music. And I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you all tomorrow. It's just us.
try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge of name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life matters is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life matters is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The heroes undo the harm, calling out corruption, we'll stand tall for justice and truth.